All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Cargo. Glad you guys were all able to make it here today. As people are still joining, I'll just do some quick introductions with the host of Interlog. So my name is Rachel. I work with the marketing team here at Interlog. We have Emily Smith, who's our project manager with the marketing team, Ben Schwingle, who is our international operations director, and then Justin Engelmeyer, who's our vice president. So we're really excited. We have a few guest speakers here to join us today. But before we begin, I do want to mention we do try to save some time at the end to answer any questions from our audience. So as you're listening today, if there's any questions that come up, put them in the Q&A. You should see it at the bottom handle of your screen. So just wanted to put that out there so we can try to get through as many as we can at the end of the webinar. But Ben, I'll hand it over to you to do the further introductions.
Well, good morning, everyone, or good evening, wherever you are. It's my pleasure to introduce Gilbert and Walter from RS Logistics. They're our friends and freight forwarding partners from China. Walter is based in Shanghai and Gilbert is at the Hong Kong branch. We've been working with RS Logistics for many years. And I can tell you more about the company, but it goes back and established 20 years ago. And we've worked together on all types of logistics projects, air, sea, all types, LCL to full containers and break bulk railroad type of. Today, we're just here to talk about conditions in China, United States, and how logistics has been recently and the forecast of this next year. Anything else you guys want to add, Gilbert, Walter?
Thanks for the opportunity to have us sharing, some of the information about, right now it's actually very close to the Chinese New Year, so we will share some information about Chinese New Year and also the recent COVID, policy change. So Gilbert will give everyone, a heads up in our insight about all this topic. Yes, and Gilbert.
Yes, thank you. Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Gilbert from RS Logistics Hong Kong branch. Nice to meet you all. Today, I'm going to share with all of you some update about the China market outlook. Especially, I would like to highlight the latest zero COVID policy suspension in mainland China. Since late December last year, the China government has been suspending the zero COVID policy. Under this new arrangement, all the international travelers, they are no longer required for the hotel quarantine upon arrival in mainland China. In addition to this, the compulsory PCR test requirement imposed on the local citizen is also reducing to a very large extent as well. Under these two situations, these drastic changes of the mainland China government national policy by overnight has leading the COVID-19 outbreak across the whole country again within a very short period of time. So we can expect that there are many mainland Chinese population are being infected with the COVID-19 within a short period of time, and this caused a sudden large-scale manpower shortage within short period of time as well.
So hey,
at the
Gilbert,
end, yes.
sorry, Gilbert, if you don't mind me jumping in here for a minute, but if we can back up here and if you can explain a little bit more detail on some of this, I have some questions for you about the international travelers no longer required for hotel quarantine upon arrival in the mainland. How exactly does that affect the viewers, the people listening and watching here? Can you give us a little more detail and insight on exactly what that means and how that affects the supply chain?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, because of the zero COVID policy suspension policy launched in mainland China since late December, and it really affects a manufacturing production schedule because beforehand, most of the factory production schedule are in the normal arrangement and also situation. However, you can imagine within so short period of time, there are plenty Chinese factory workers, they are being infected. So that, they are, most of them, they are on sick leave and they cannot go back to their workstation for performing their production duties. And also on the other hand, because of this zero COVID policy suspension, many Chinese factories, they are facing to the production delay, and even some of the mainland Chinese factory, they are facing to some order cancellation from the overseas buyer, simply because this critical situation cannot enable them to meet up with the overseas delivery lead time with reference to the their original commercial agreement deal with their overseas buyer. For us, like the RS company, more than 80% of our company employee, more than 80%, you can imagine, have been infected with the COVID virus over the past 2 to 3 times. And many of our staff members, they have been sick. They cannot perform the normal duty at least, 1 week up to 10 days. But of course, luckily, we mainly deliver the journal service. We can still maintain our normal operation through the home office arrangement. However, this is not the same scenario facing to the factory, because the factory, they really need the workers go back to the workstation to perform their jobs and duties in the factory building. So this is a very big impact on the China export demand and also export performance over the past 2 to 3 times. Thank you.
So, sure. So over the past 2 to 3 years, just to summarize here, over the past 2 to 3 years, a lot of the factory workers were having difficulty even getting to work because of the regulations set in place by the government.
That's true. It imposed a very severe challenge on the China factory over the past 2 to 3 times. Yeah.
And is that no longer the case everywhere, or just certain areas of China? Does that spread out across all of China or certain areas? Does that make sense?
It definitely, it's definitely impact on those coastal area, I would say, at the beginning stage, because most of the key strategic production location, like in Shanghai, Ningbo, Dongguan, Thailand, Tianjin, I think this is the first most area are being infected. However, since under the COVID zero COVID policy arrangement, some of many workers, many factory workers, they have started to return back to their origin, means more inland area in mainland China as well. And we would expect, this spillover will continuously impact on those inland area or inland city after several weeks.
Very good.
One thing I've been wondering a lot, Gilbert and Walter, is that since the December policy suspension, the number of reported COVID cases in China has gone up very quickly, and it remains high, but the policies remain suspended. We're going into Chinese New Year, families are coming back together, many factory workers are going to their more remote homes, rural homes.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned is that after Chinese New Year, we're going to see cases rise even farther. So at what point do you think the Chinese government would renew the suspension of travel or the test requirements?
Okay. Thank you for your question, Benjamin. First of all, we would forecast the COVID-19 virus spillover will continue at least for a few months. According to the medical specialists in mainland China, the peak season is not yet come. We would expect, everything will be back to normal after the Chinese New Year. After the Chinese New Year, like something like in March or April, something like that. Yeah. Because over the past 3 years, China have been practicing zero COVID-19 tolerance policy, so that the aggregate the antibody level of the China population is at a very low level. Okay, so now it really takes time for the China territory to go through the entire adjustment process. Like other countries, like in US, Europe, and even like Hong Kong.
That makes sense.
Yeah, with the increase in the vaccination rate, I don't think the China government will renew the control measures this year. So COVID will be over. I would say COVID control measures will be over. So everything will resume normal, in 2023.
Yeah, this is also our local prediction. Yeah.
Sure, that makes sense. And that leads us right into our next topic here, is really focusing on the Chinese New Year and a little bit of the difference between what it has been over the past few years and what we're currently facing. And Rachel, I believe the next slide, or is this? Oh, okay, here we go.
Okay.
So Gilbert, if you'd like to touch on a few of these points, and then we'll readdress them and further clarify some of them.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, so stepping into early January, we have seen that there have been a significant amount of the mainland Chinese factory workers have returned back to their hometown even much more earlier than the common practice when comparing with the previous year. Because when the zero COVID policy suspension has been launched, many of the Chinese workers, they really miss their family for at least 1 year long or even 2 years long. So that many of them, they would like to choose to go back to their hometown earlier. Although the Chinese New Year official public holiday is only talking about 10 days, the actual total holidays during the Chinese New Year period to be taken by the factory workers normally should be between 2 to 4 weeks time or even longer. Of course, it all depends on which city location or which vertical market associate, in particular subsegment. And most of the factory, in this regard, most of the factory, they are forced to entirely or semi-stop the production earlier because of the labor shortage. And at the same time, the overseas market demand is not so strong, stepping into Q4 and last year and also Q1 period as well. Overall, according to our recent observation and also the market update received from our local branch office, most of the port terminal in mainland China are to be in normal operation, whereas the port customer quality will also continue to provide the limited services during the Chinese New Year period as well. All in all, the overall weak export demand caused by the above mentioned reasons or circumstances in mainland China, they all drive the strict principle to launch the ban sailing arrangement before or after the Chinese New Year, because of the demand has been dropping over the past few weeks. And this is also the common practice for the carrier for launching the ban sailing arrangement during the Chinese New Year, when with reference to the past year practice. Yeah. This is what we would like to share to the audience.
Sure. So what you're saying is some of the Chinese factory workers, they haven't been home in quite some time, right? And so now you're saying that they're going to take possibly a longer break than they normally have, with the demands having decreased and the capacity increasing. So some of this, they're going to take a little bit longer break than normal. And how long? Some of these guys haven't been home. Men and women haven't even been home in 2 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it can be because before the zero COVID policy, those factory workers, if they travel from one city to another city, they also need to go through all those kind of PCR tests or special permit, and so and so. But now the policy is fully suspended. This means that the workers are eligible for moving themselves from one province to another province without any obstacle or without any government restriction anymore. So that you can imagine they really want to go home very much, because quite a number of them they haven't returned back to hometown for family reunion for at least more than 1 year, and even for some of them even up to 2 years time.
Yeah, I would say in the last 2 years. So when people travel around different cities within mainland China, they might need to be quarantined in somewhere, all right? They might need to be quarantined somewhere for duration of like 2 weeks to 4 weeks, depends on which city they're going into and depends on which city they are coming from. So you can imagine, when the workers, if they want to go back to the hometown, they need to be quarantined for that long. And then when they go back to, their factory after, the holiday, they might also need to be quarantined for another 2 to 4 weeks. So that's why in the last 2 years, the factory owners, they are trying to let the workers stay, in the location, in the factory location, I would say, and try to discourage them from going back to hometown. And also a lot of workers, they are trying to avoid to be quarantined at both ends. So that's why once, all these control measures are released recently, they will, most of them, I would say, if not all, they will go back for a longer period. Yeah, just to catch up with their family in the hometown. So that's why, we can expect there will be a longer holiday for most of the workers this year.
Okay.
Interesting blend of circumstances that makes this pre-Chinese New Year time period different than many of the previous years, the earlier holiday and the workers leaving. But we still have about a week or so before the holiday begins. Do customers and the suppliers still have the opportunity to load containers and get them into the port? And they place bookings this week and still get cargo out? Either Gilbert or Walter, do you feel there's time for new bookings?
Yeah, we can still get the we can still get the booking out, as as mentioned in this slide. The port, there's no closure of the port at all. The port was still in normal operation during Chinese New Year, and we still have a custom officer clearing all the customs. And even though there are a lot of blank sailing, but the carrier, they're still maintaining limited sailings in the market. So, but then we need to be very careful about the bookings. If the shippers they're placing the bookings too late, there could be a possibility of being pumped by the carrier, because just before the Chinese New Year, this is a usual practice. All the shipping lines, they are trying to get as much booking as possible before the Chinese New Year holiday. That being the reason that they want to grab as much as possible, because, well, they know that after the Chinese New Year, the factory is going to be closed down for another 2 to 4 weeks or even longer. So they need more booking to fill the sailings after the Chinese New Year. So that's why if the booking from the shipper is too late, we might be able to get a space for you guys, but then the bookings might not be catching the intended vessel. They might be pumped for 1 or 2 weeks, depending on whether they have a blank sailing in the following weeks. Yeah, but the answer to that is yes, we still can get the container out. So that's why it's very important for the customers to let us know if they have a delivery timeline for that specific booking. So we normally will try to figure out the best solution for our customer. If they have a delivery timeline, we will try all possible ways to make it on board the intended sailing.
The bookings are available, the containers are available, the truckers are even available, just to make sure the factory schedule matches. Thanks, Walter.
And that brings us right into another topic here, Ben and Walter and Gilbert, is the whole blank sailings. And if we can discuss that a little bit, the causes for these blank sailings. I know, since primarily what I do for Interlog is work with the sales department. And so when we're talking to our customers and we tell them they have a booking in place and all of a sudden there's a blank sailing, we can be told that, did we even have the booking before or something like that. So if we can cover a little bit about these blank sailings, why they happen, what's going on with them.
Okay. Thank you, Justin, for your question. From this PowerPoint slideshow, you can see that the carrier they are launching the blank sailing in whole January, and the total capacity to be withdrawn from the Pacific market will be highest one during week 5 and week 6. So basically, most of the major loading port like Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Ningbo, Qingdao, and Xiamen, and almost at least 50% of the original capacity will be withdrawn from the Pacific market. And then the next question, you may ask why this is happening. As we also mentioned before, the China factory production schedule will be only resume normal in late February or even in early March, so that the China export demand after the Chinese New Year holiday, means week 5 or week 6, is particularly weak. And also on the other hand, the carrier, they would also like to maintain the CFIC charges level to a certain extent, so that they will manipulate the capacity supply in order to achieve the CFIC charges level they intend to achieve. So of course, we would expect even after the Chinese New Year holiday, we would expect the blank sailing will continue to happen in 2023, because the ocean freight charges has been dropping to a very lowest level, almost down by maybe 80% more, over the past 6 months. So that this, but of course, the blank sailing scenario after the Chinese New Year will be much better than the current information we forecast. Yes.
So go ahead, Walter. Go ahead.
Sorry, Justin. Just one more information for everyone. So the reason for the blank sailing, normally in the past, it will only happen in the slack season, whereby the demand it's weak. So that's why steamship line, they're trying to control the total capacity. But then in the last 2 years, it's a little different, because there are a lot of port congestions in United States and also in China as well. So the normal schedule, we normally have a weekly schedule. The vessels cannot come back timely, so that's why I think most of us, experience terribly about this all these unreliable sailing schedules, a lot of delays. So that's why steamship line, they will impose blank sailing in order to catch up with some of the schedules thereafter. So that's why during the last 2 years, a lot of blank sailings are because of the port congestion. And then in addition, when we go to the slack season, just like after Chinese New Year, the blank sailing will even be more serious. You can see from this chart, they are like the highest is like 80% of the total sailings are being omitted in week 6, right? So you can imagine steamship line, they are trying to control the capacity because of the slack season, and also because of the port congestion. But in 2023, the sailing schedule will become more reliable, because we can see that the port congestion in the United States are no longer that serious. There might be a slight delay, but it won't affect too much in the normal weekly sailing. So going forward, I think the blank sailing will continue to happen, but only happen during the slack season.
Sure. So there were those 2 reasons. You had one, the ripple effect of the international supply chain, everything from delays in the US, delays all over the world, delays in China, creates inconsistency within the sailing schedules. And then you have the overall capacity surge of each steamship line. They only want to send out full vessels. They don't want to send out blank vessels that aren't full. And so they're trying to control that, the not only the pricing, but the capacity within that. That leads me to a question, and one that we get frequently from our customers. are there carriers that have less blank sailings? Meaning, are there carriers that you find more reliable? Do you have choices where someone maybe could pay a little more and they're going to be guaranteed there is no blank sailing?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there will be carriers with less sailing. I would say it's not carrier, because right now, the carrier, they're operating in alliance. All right, so there would be some alliance with a more reliable sailing, but it all depends on the situation they have at that time. So we actually maintain a blank sailing report for all our customers in United States. So that's why when we receive a booking, we will see what kind of blank sailing we have in different alliances, and then we will give our suggestion. So that's why I cannot just simply conclude which carrier has the most reliable services. All right, but for sure, say like to the West Coast, Medicine is the most reliable. All right, in terms of the transit time, and also they won't have any blank sailing at all for their CLX service. But but everyone knows their price is the highest in the market, right? So that's why, yeah, you can pay higher to the West Coast and go by Medicine if you want the most reliable services. But for the other alliances, everyone, they have different extent of blank sailing in different period of time. So that's why we need to monitor it closely. And as I said, that's why we have a whole team getting all the information and compiling into a report for our customers, so that they all know what extent will be for the blank sailing in the coming few weeks.
Very good. Thank you, Walter.
That's well said. I just wanted to add on to that I actually appreciate the blank sailings in place of the delayed schedules. It makes everyone's planning, if you're watching the reports like Walter's team is, reliable, so they can actually plan and choose correctly, so there's not any surprises, and just need fewer conversations with customers like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Rachel, I know we have some other slides here, but I also see that we're running a little bit out of time here. So let's at least post this up so people can see about it, and you can tell people where they're able to read more about this and get copies of this, as well as to continue to ask us more questions. I'll let you take it from here, Rachel.
Sure. Yep. So typically we will send out a recap email tomorrow with more information. So we'll put all of these different bullet points on the email tomorrow that you guys will receive around noon Central Time. And if you do guys have any questions for our team at Interlog or the team at RS Logistics, get it in the Q&A. We still have a couple more minutes before we'll close it, just due to time. And I know it's getting late over there, Gilbert and Walter, so we'll let you guys go, but we'll reach out to you guys with any questions you have. Before I do close it, Gilbert, Walter, do you want to touch one last comment on this slide?
Gilbert.
Okay. Basically, for the overall China ocean market outlook in this year, I think our main conclusion is that the overall the civic charges level will be definitely back to the pre-pandemic level, because the capacity increase and also the aggregate export demand is dropping in this year. That's what we forecast, yeah. And for the rest of other information details, I believe that Interlogistics will share this PowerPoint to all of the audience today. Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Ryan, Justin, do you guys have any last comments?
Yeah, I would like to say one more thing here. I really appreciate Gilbert, Walter coming on here. They've been a good partner of ours for years. And there's so many topics that we have that we can talk about. We briefly touched on some. So for those viewers that are still interested and want to hear more about it, hopefully we'll be lucky enough to have these guys back on here and do this again sometime in the near future.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Great. So if you guys do, again, here's Walter and Gilbert's contact details. I know there's quite a bit of questions that have come through. Again, we'll be reaching out to you guys individually with those. But just a little bit, our next webinar will be February 15th, 10 a.m. Central Time. So if you guys want to join that one as well, we do offer a monthly webinar mailing list, so you don't have to sign up each month. So if you want to be a part of that, you can reach out to myself at rachel@interlogusa.com. We hope to see you there. Gilbert, Walter, thanks for joining. I know it's late, so we'll let you guys go. And Emily, Justin, Ben, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Have a happy new year.
Happy New Year.
Absolutely.